All right, let's get right into it. By 2026, the global trade system that we've all grown up with, it's going to look completely different. Geopolitics is tearing up the old rulebook, shattering alliances and forging brand new ones. So the big question is, what will this new world map look like? And who's going to be holding all the cards?
So let's just tackle the elephant in the room right away. Is the era of global trade as we know it actually over? Well, the answer isn't a simple yes or no. Trade itself isn't just stopping, but that single, massive, interconnected system we once had, yeah, that's definitely breaking apart.
And here's the core idea you need to grasp. We have to stop thinking about global trade as one big, happy family. It's just not anymore. What we're seeing now is a world of competing blocs, rival alliances. Think of it less like one giant global highway for everyone, and more like a bunch of competing high-speed rail networks, each with their own rules, their own partners, and their own exclusive destinations.
To really understand this new map, we've got to start with the economic foundation that everything's being built on. There are these three powerful forces all hitting at the same time, and believe me, they are changing absolutely everything as we head toward 2026.
First thing, the world economy is slowing way down. We're looking at a projected global growth of around 3% for 2026. Now, that might not sound terrible, but it's a huge drop from the 4+% we were used to seeing before 2020. This kind of slow, choppy growth makes every country a lot more cautious and a lot more competitive.
At the very same time, the world's major central banks, especially the U.S. Federal Reserve, they are in a super tricky spot. They're using high interest rates to fight off inflation, which makes sense. But those exact same high rates are like a boa constrictor on the flow of money around the globe. It just makes it harder for everyone to grow, especially those emerging markets. So you put it all together, slower growth, higher interest rates, and this new trade fragmentation, and you've got yourself a perfect storm. The slow growth makes countries more protective of what they have. High interest rates squeeze everyone's budgets, and that just fuels this push to build defensive economic walls. This is the volatile, unpredictable landscape of 2026.
So, this brand new landscape is creating a new global chessboard. The question now is, who are the major players, and what moves are they making to try and win this new game?
The single biggest driver of, pretty much everything right now is the intense rivalry between the United States and China. This competition isn't just a side story. It is defining the fault lines of this new global order, and nowhere is that more obvious than in the world of technology.
And the result? We're seeing a tech world literally splitting in two. On one side, you have the U.S. trying to restrict China's access to the most advanced computer chips, pushing its allies to move their supply chains elsewhere. And on the other side, you've got China doubling down, pouring billions into its own domestic tech to become totally self-sufficient. We are watching two separate spheres of influence form in real time.
So, what about Europe in all of this? Well, the war in Ukraine was a massive, massive shock to the system. It forced this fundamental rethink of everything they thought they knew. For Europe in 2026, the game is no longer just about economic efficiency. It's about survival, security, and plain old self-sufficiency.
And this new, much more defensive mindset means Europe is scrambling to lock down its own energy supplies. It's ramping up defense spending like never before, and it's working to protect its own internal supply chains. It is a huge strategic pivot towards a more protectionist, you might even say Fortress Europe kind of approach.
Meanwhile, on the other side of the board, a powerful counterweight is getting bigger and stronger. The BRICS alliance, that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, it's expanded. It's now BRICS Plus, and it is a serious challenger to that traditional Western-led economic order.
And their strategy is pretty clear. By adding huge oil producers like Saudi Arabia and the UAE, they get massive leverage over global commodities. They're also pushing hard to do trade in their own local currencies, trying to chip away at the dominance of the US dollar. It's like they're building a parallel financial system right alongside the old one.
And who's sitting right in the middle of all these competing forces? India. It's quickly becoming one of the most critical swing states in this new global game, playing a really unique balancing act.
So what makes India so important all of a sudden? For one, it's becoming the new go-to manufacturing hub for companies trying to get out of China. But its real power comes from its strategic neutrality. It keeps strong ties with the West and with the BRICS bloc. As a giant in both production and consumption, it's a player that absolutely nobody can afford to ignore. Okay, so beyond these huge power blocks, there are these other conflicts being fought all over the globe, kind of under the surface. And two of the most important hidden battlegrounds for 2026 are going to be artificial intelligence and the fight for critical raw materials.
Artificial intelligence is fast becoming the invisible hand of global trade. And no, this isn't just buzzword bingo. AI is already making our supply chains way smarter, helping predict what people are going to buy, optimizing incredibly complex shipping routes, and even enabling the kind of automation that makes it possible to bring manufacturing back home.
And what's powering all this amazing new tech? Well, that would be rare earth minerals. These are basically the building blocks of our entire 21st century world. The essential ingredients for literally everything, from the phone in your pocket to the batteries in electric cars and even advanced weapon systems.
It's exactly why you're hearing these minerals being called the new oil of geopolitics. The global competition to control the supply of things like lithium, cobalt, and nickel. It's the new great game. For countries in 2026, securing these minerals is every bit as critical as securing oil was in the last century.
So, with all of these forces pulling in different directions, competing blocs, tech wars, battles over resources, how could this all actually play out? Let's walk through three potential scenarios for what the world might actually look like in 2026. So, we're basically looking at three possible paths. The optimistic one is that tensions cool down, and we see some cooperation return. Then you've got the neutral path, which is probably the most likely, where we just kind of muddle through this fragmented world without any huge crisis. But then there's the pessimistic path, where a flashpoint, say a conflict over Taiwan, ignites a massive shock that could bring the whole global system to its knees.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. What does all of this actually mean for you? Let's boil down these huge geopolitical shifts into a few key things you should probably be watching for as we head into this new era.
Here's your cheat sheet. First, the geopolitical hotspots. Keep a close eye on U.S. China relations, particularly around Taiwan, and anything that flares up in the Middle East. Those will send immediate shockwaves through the economy. Second, commodity prices. Watch the cost of energy and those critical minerals. They're going to be a key barometer for rising tensions. And finally, just get ready for volatility. In this new world, markets are going to swing and swing wildly based on a single political headline.
And all of this leaves us with one final and frankly enormous question. As this old unified system continues to crack and give way to these competing networks of power, we have to ask ourselves, in this new fragmented world, who is actually going to write the rules for the future? That is the battle that will define not just 2026, but the decades to come.